Okay, Sports Card Strategy Show brought to you by nooffseason.com, sponsored by marketmoversapp.com. By Sports Card Investor, use the promo code NOOFFSEASON, all lowercase, to save 20% there. We want to give a shout out to Vanity Slabs. Use the promo code NOOFFSEASON, all lowercase, to save 10% there. And of course, we always talk about Star Stock, where you can use the promo code NOOFFSEASON, all lowercase, to get a free $10.
What's up?
Hey, what's up, Kendall? How you doing, man?
Man, good. How are you?
Doing well, thanks.
I thought I would mirror your pilot headset with mine. So
yours looks way better than mine. I'm gonna need to get some slimmer ear.
Just make some radio calls just to the tower.
Yeah.
How are we doing?
Yeah, that's right. Flight 7382, you're cleared for takeoff.
Hey, you even got it. You even sound good. You guys sit back and relax and have a good flight.
That's right. Be safe out there. Weather's a little rainy, a little cloudy, but hopefully your visibility will improve. Just call if you need anything. Over and out.
I love it.
So what's up with you, man? Appreciate your taking some time out today.
Dude, no, it's good. I'm glad that I am excited to be on your show. So it's not like, don't feel like this is a burden for me. This is a gift. I'm excited. Okay. So it's Thanksgiving week here. My family's here. We're ready to rock and roll and eat some turkey, watch some football. Yeah, so I have the week off. So I'm just chilling.
Cool. All right, well, let's get into it. I'm ready to talk some baseball.
Dude, that is my specialty. So
cool. So everybody, we've got Kendall McKee from Wild Cards Box Breaks. Check out the Facebook group. You can search Wild Cards Box Breaks on Facebook, but I'm going to drop the link everywhere. And we'd love to see you there. And Kendall also writes for justbaseball.com. So he's a baseball expert, sports cards expert, all sports, but baseball, I think it's safe to say it's your favorite. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I love baseball. I've loved baseball cards since I was a kid, and I just got back into baseball cards pretty hardcore in the past year. So I need some help on the show. I've got some questions for you today. You are very knowledgeable when it comes to, you break. Well, actually, why don't you start off by telling us kind of what do you break over at Wild Cards Box Breaks in terms of baseball specifically? Like, what are the things you like to break, and what do you break a lot of over there?
Yeah, so baseball cards have primarily been the flagship for me going just throughout my life. Not even recently, but just throughout my life, they've been something that I've always gravitated towards. Baseball was my primary sport when I was playing. I went on literally anything. If anybody had asked me between like the ages of 0 and even like 15, what I wanted to do when I grow up, I wanted to be a Texas Ranger. Every year it was like, I'm going to be a professional baseball player, and I couldn't hit a curveball. So that didn't really go well for me, but, so I always loved, baseball and cards. But what we're breaking on our site, which we would love to have, any and all of you guys out there, we're not just baseball. Our group, is leaning more baseball in terms of the people that are in there right now, because a lot of our people have found us through the Just Baseball site. But we do break football and basketball, and we're looking towards breaking some soccer as well, which that's my second favorite. Like basketball and football are really marketable, but like soccer is what I really want to do. So if you can pull any people from your soccer world out there,
man,
that would be awesome.
I might have to send you some. I might have to send you some product to break. Yes. I've got some Premier League product and some La Liga. So I don't know if you'd be interested in that, but
yeah. Everton's that's my club. So I've loved them since like 2010 when I started watching the Premier League. It was like the first time it came on TV from where I was, and I just started watching Everton because, of course, Tim Howard was on the team. But yeah, what products we break right now primarily in baseball, or We break several different products, but we have one of them that's a flagship product for us that literally fills faster than anything else, and we always get good hits out of it. It's just the Bowman series, whether that's Bowman or 2021 Bowman, which came out last in like February or so. We're still breaking that. We break hobbies of that and blasters of that. Actually, the blasters typically have a good run of product variation as well. It's not just the hobby products that you're searching for in that product, which sometimes can get like that in other products where it's like hobby or nothing, you know. But then we also recently have been breaking 21 Bowman Chrome, which is kind of an updated series. It's the end of the year version of the Bowman 21 set. And it has a lot of firsts in it of international signings that signed in the summer. And then something that we're about to really, really break into like 100 miles per hour is the Bowman draft that comes out in December. And that's all the players that were drafted in the first year player draft in June.
Okay. That's awesome. So I'm sure you guys are gonna be promoting when you get those in, and that's gonna be a big thing for you. I'd love to get involved in some of that. Break it down real quick. Who would the top hits be out of that product? I know the Red Sox take a shortstop 4th overall.
Oh, yeah.
Is he gonna be the guy?
So he fell nicely to them. But my favorite guy, and this is showing my extreme bias right now, but I am all in on Leiter. Number 2 pick,
Okay.
Rangers. That's my squad. Like I might end up buying the Rangers in every break. So if you're a Rangers guy, like you're gonna have to beat me to my own break. But no, that's kind of a joke. But I am all in on Jack Leiter. His dad Al was a major leaguer as well. And then the shortstops are incredible in this product. And man, I'm not kidding you. And sometimes it feels like every set feels like this, but this might be one of those products that you stash and it just continues to go up because marketable players in the major leagues typically are up the middle players, whether that's, the products that sell really well are shortstop, center field, or catalytic media driven players. So like Harper and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you about, I'm definitely excited about some of those guys that you were just mentioning taken in the 2021 draft, but I also wanted to ask you about like the top 100 right now in terms of prospects.
Yes.
So, guys that you can kind of laugh at my strategy, but as I was watching the Futures game back in July, I was on Star Stock and I literally, like everyone who hit a home run, I just bought their Bowman.
Yeah,
like, immediately did it. Like as I was watching the game live. So
yeah.
good or bad strategy there. I'm on Star Stock and that's how I just started to get into the singles in the baseball prospecting. I don't know if that was
who'd
good
you
or
end up
bad.
buying?
Well, so I got
Tell
Jose
me you got some Brennan Davis.
I got Brennan Davis, yeah.
Yes!
I got Brennan Davis. I got Michael Toglia.
Rockies. Uh-huh.
Yep. I got Jose Barrero, who I was listening to the broadcast and they were saying his name as a rookie was Jose Adolis Garcia. And so I got the correct Jose Adolis Garcia. Nolan Gorman.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. Nolan. Yeah.
Adley Rutschman.
Uh-huh.
And then some guys who I already had that I may or may not have bought more of during the Futures game because I was excited about them I grew up a Tigers fan. I'm still a Tigers fan. So, Of course, Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson. Those are the two guys that I've loaded up on them in general. But and then I don't know, like a guy named Garrett Mitchell because I'm a Nashville Sounds fan, and he's in the Brewers organization.
Yep.
So that was my strategy, and it continues to be my strategy, basically, is like looking at the top 100 list and listening to a few podcasts and trying to understand like who might get moved up or who might get some hype in the future, and then basically going to Star Stock and seeing what their singles are in the Bowman, just because I don't know as much about how to get the correct rookie baseball cards. And I know that Star Stock is rookies only, that sort of thing. But anyway, talk about if you think I'm, if you think I'm doing it okay in terms of my strategy, and then I want to get into like who on the list you think is a good buy right now and why.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, let me ask you a precursor question before I dive into this. When you're buying those cards, are you buying rookie cards? Are you buying Bowmans? Are you buying Bowman Chromes? Are you buying their first? Are you buying autos? What are you typically looking for?
If a Bowman first auto is available and in a price point that I feel comfortable with, or something that differentiates it, like a refractor or something, I'll go for those. But honestly, primarily it's the Bowman first, just paper Bowman Chrome first prospect cards. Basically,
Yeah.
is what I'm going after.
Okay, so that gives me a good foundation to start from. Basically, you've done it correctly. To some, I mean, I think you could be like slightly nuanced and make a lot more return, because the guys that you mentioned, honestly, are already. Okay, I'm going to say this with a little grain of salt, but I think the guys the guys you just named, are overbought already.
Gotcha. Yep.
They're almost to the point where you need to be looking deeper than that. Now,
Yep.
some of them are going to be so good it doesn't matter, and I would say keep hammering that. But for instance, Riley Green, you mentioned him. He is. If you're looking for potential return, now if you're a collector and you're wanting to just have like a really great looking cards and like something that you can always be like, dang, I've got a Riley Green Bowman Chrome auto first, it's going to be so sick, then go ahead and do that. If you're an investor looking at potential return and like the flip and the X return on that and all that kind of stuff, which is typically where I typically land on looking for maybe like diamonds in the rough that I know are going to be potentially top 10 someday that are going to have the X return on it. Then I dig deeper than that, because Riley Green's numbers are already like he's a good major leaguer, which I think he will be. I think Riley Green is a stud, and we've seen that. And I think it's hard to argue, even though this sounds outlandish, it's hard to argue which one is better, him or Torque. And that is saying a lot for him. That's saying a lot for Riley, but I believe that. But there is still the chance that he doesn't do well in the majors. Like he still hasn't reached that cusp yet. And so there is still a degree of skepticism where you have to hedge your bet a little bit. And I think Riley Green is so expensive right now because he's going to be great. But to be fair, he hasn't hit the field yet. And everybody thought Kelenic was just going to blow out of the cannon. And he came out and he struggled for a couple months. And, in September, he was one of the best rookies in the game. So I'm still buying Kelenic, and I haven't sold off my collection of him either. But what I'm saying is, if you buy Riley Green now, he comes out in April and stumbles throughout the gate, people are all of a sudden just going to be like, oh, man, this guy's not for real, because they all expect him to come out and be, Fernando Tatis, or all of a sudden hit the majors and all of a sudden was just exploding, And so I would go a little bit cheaper on prospects, but you're buying the right cards, I think.
Okay.
And all the guys that you said are guys that I have in my personal, my investment portfolio. So
yeah, that's a great analysis, because that's the mistake I made really in all sports when I first got back into the hobby. Back in February of this year, the mistake I made was basically I looked at who was hot and I bought it, not really realizing like that's overpaying for it. And then, I quickly have been able to tweak my approach in sports that I'm more knowledgeable in, like basketball and football. So, for example, scouting guys like Tyrese Maxey and Grayson Allen, and scouting guys on the football side, like getting a guy like Kadarius Toney and Rashad Bateman, like basically when they were injured and no one was paying attention to them, and then when they come back on the field, that's when I sell them. So what I want to do is that in baseball, and basically what you're saying is I need to do a better. And that's why I'm glad to have you on the show, because I want to be able to provide the most value to the audience. If I were to sit here and talk about baseball and naming those guys, I'd be misleading people. So how do we find like how do we either buy the dip on guys, if that even exists in baseball, or how do we, to your point, dig deeper on a prospect rather than the obvious ones before they break out? And feel free to throw out some of those names as examples
Yeah.
that you're guys that you're looking at.
So I'm going to give a little shameless plug here to justbaseball.com. Something that we're doing that's a lot different than what other people are doing in the hobby right now. And I'm specifically referencing to the card side of things, but justbaseball.com does not only, it's only one of the verticals is collectibles. The rest of them are minor leagues, major leagues, college baseball. We cover all facets of the game. But something that's specifically unique about our collectibles department versus some potential other media sites is we are passionate about sports cards, but we're also really passionate about scouting. And most of our guys come from minor league scouting departments. We have like 15 to 20 guys, and we have some guys that are GMs in the Cape Cod League. We have guys that work in minor league farm systems in Major League Baseball. We have guys that have worked for the Marlins. We have guys that worked for the Yankees. And so it's guys that know what to look for before their top 10 candidates. And what is perfect for that is you mirror that knowledge with a knowledge of sports cards, and all of a sudden you're finding Bowman Chromes out there of guys that nobody really knows of yet, and then you're buying them. For instance, I'll just give you my hot number one name that I'm buying right now. I have literally bought 17 cards of his autos in the past 2 weeks. Okay. So 17 autos of this guy, Bowman Chrome first autos in the last 2 weeks of Austin Shenton. This guy went from the Mariners to the Rays in a trade for a reliever, and everybody in the Mariners system was like, this guy hits, but he doesn't have a defensive position. Well, here's another little tidbit, Paul. If Tampa Bay wants your prospect, you don't want to give him up. Like, there is like 2 or 3 teams in baseball. If they want your guy, that they're like, hey, just throw this guy in. That guy's going to be a stud major leaguer. And so this goes a little bit beyond that, but I have bought an average of $11 per auto on Austin Shenton in the past 2 weeks. And I've gotten 2 PSA 10s for under $50. And
that's amazing. That's amazing.
Very, very candid. I'm being super honest with you, and I'm not trying to just inflate Austin Shenton here. But what I am trying to do is say there's guys way off the top 100 list that have the metrics that you look for that are going to be good major leaguers. And I believe that if he finds a defensive position, I mean, that is a riskier play than Riley Green, I think, but it's a different kind of risk. You have a risk that Austin Shenton might not make it to the major leagues, but a lot of baseball, this is another unique thing about baseball card trading that I've noticed. And I collect all the sports just like you do, but my specialization is in baseball. But what I've noticed is that people that don't, let me try to figure out how to say this. I think marginal baseball investors enjoy tops and enjoy the Series 1, the Series 2, the rookie cards. And if it has the RC next to it, they're like, that's the card I want. But if you're a true baseball investor, you need to go deeper than that, because the rookie card is not the premier card that you want. Like in football, you want that rated rookie or something like that of Lamar Jackson in a PSA 10 or something like that. And I could be wrong there because that's not my expertise. But I'm just saying, like, you want the card when he first hits his major league uniform. And I have some of like the Clemson Trevor Lawrence cards that aren't as valuable as like potentially as Jaguars Trevor Lawrence card. Well, that is switched in baseball. Like his Bowman cards or whoever it is, their Bowman first card is going to be the most valuable because that's the first one to hit the market. For instance, here's another guy, O'Neal Cruz from the Pittsburgh Pirates. Let me just preface this. The Pittsburgh Pirates system is loaded with buys. Loaded. Nick Gonzalez, that guy is literally going, in my opinion, this might sound like a hot take, but I think he's going to win an MVP someday. Nick Gonzalez. I've been buying him
Okay.
recently.
Awesome.
So please go out and buy Nick Gonzalez and have no fear. Like that guy is a bona fide major league all-star. But for instance, O'Neal Cruz, very, very strange mix-up. He's a middle infielder right now, but he's like almost 7 feet tall. Like he's just a very unorthodox player, but his exit velocities are 120 miles per hour. Like
Okay.
that is true. There is one major leaguer that reached 120 miles per hour exit velocity, and that's Giancarlo Stanton.
Okay.
You have a skinny frame, 7 foot tall shortstop whose exit velocity is 120 miles per hour. You can't fake that, Paul. Like that is skill. So you've got guys like O'Neal Cruz, but his first Bowman card was in 2016.
Okay.
So it's just like you have to dig back for that. So anyway, there you go. That's a little bit of stuff.
Yeah, that's amazing, and this is exactly why I wanted to have you on the show, and I'd love it if you continue to come back on the show because you've got me Googling and you've got me doing some research, and the first thing that I start to think of is how can I take this knowledge that I'm getting from you today in terms of like look generally for like sluggers, middle infielders, outfielders, obviously. I mean, and yeah, they're in the minors, so their positions are going to change most likely as they try to work their way up to the major leagues. How can I reverse engineer this and come up with a process? Reading justbaseball.com, phenomenal. I used to read Baseball Weekly when I was a kid, and that's how I knew all the minor leaguers. That's how I knew all the top prospects. And so you're kind of giving me like a throwback to like a throwback tip, right? Which I love. So I'm definitely going to do that, and I encourage the audience to do that. But do you have a process as you're prospecting from a Bowman Chrome first standpoint on guys? I have to imagine that you're like me where you'll throughout your week when you have maybe 5 to 10 minutes of downtime here and there, you're jumping on either eBay or some kind of marketplace and trying to see, is there a deal on a guy? Like you mentioned getting Austin Shenton, I think a couple PSA 10s of him for under $50 total. So I'd imagine like you've built this process, right? So like how do I generally do that for baseball? Like do I look at do I read something about a guy, bookmark it, do a little bit of research later? Is it that kind of thing, or is it looking at cards that are underpriced and then going and saying, okay, well he's this position and research do you research? Do you find the player and then look into the cards, or do you look at the card prices and then look into the player?
For us, we find the player and then look into the cards. We have at Just Baseball in our collectibles department, we have a podcast that we do every week that we're releasing on YouTube, and it's actually just started. And so, we're in the beginning processes of that, but we give buys and sells every week and stuff like that. But when we put our data together and we pull that through from from all different sabermetrics and stuff, we have what we're calling a Just Baseball score, and that's like what our buy is. And I kind of want to keep that in house, to be fair.
Yeah, of course.
But
that's
but
awesome though.
But what I do say is we have this Just Baseball score, and there's guys that are very obvious that are ranking on the Just Baseball score that you're like, okay, that's great. And then there's guys like Austin Shenton that are up there that you're like, who is that?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also guys that are not on the Just Baseball or the JB Plus, or is what we call it. That's our sabermetric little logo, the JB Plus. So there's guys on there that are not on there that are being bought like crazy, and so we avoid those guys. And so Bobby Witt Jr., Julio Rodriguez, those dudes are studs. Keep buying them, like if you can. Now, some of them are really high. Bobby Witt Jr. PSA 10 is like 1,700 or something like that. Like if I had the money, I would still buy that because I do believe that much in Witt. But there's other guys down there. Luciano is incredible. That dude's got like standing around the ball field, you hear the crack of his bat, you look over. It's different than if another player is hitting. And so, but what I would say is I do not typically look at the position. I look at the makeup of the player, because one thing that's specific about baseball is hitting plays. They find a spot for you. You know, like
Mhm.
you see guy like Pujols. He was on the Dodgers all like pretty much all year. The guy's terrible at defending.
Yep.
Now, obviously, Pujols is a different. You know, that's you're gonna find a spot for a Hall of Famer. You know, that's a little
Yeah.
bit different. You know, but there are guys out there that defensively, baseball is becoming more and more an offensive game. And if a guy has like a place that he maybe doesn't excel in defensively, he's still going to be on a roster because he just mashes, And so, what you don't necessarily want to look for, and I hate this about card trading. This is my number one hate about baseball card trading, is that pitchers aren't valuable.
Yeah.
Because I love the art of pitching, and I love, for instance, Owen White. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. Owen White was the Arizona Fall League Pitcher of the Year, and he's a Texas Ranger. Okay.
Okay.
So he came out and he just literally blew away. I don't know how much you know about the Arizona Fall League, but basically it's like the top 50 prospects came and all played in a short season together. So it's not like he's blowing away, single A or rookie ball pitcher or hitters. This guy literally took the best of the best, Brennan Davis, Nick Gonzalez, or Brennan wasn't in there, but Bryson Stott, who's the shortstop for the Phillies. Like these are guys that are going to be very good major leaguers. JJ Bleday, and he's just striking them out like crazy. Had like an under 2 ERA in his 6 starts and had 5 wins. And his card I just bought for $1.79.
So will you make a return on that? Like when you buy that, you're obviously like, man, I'd spend $1.79 easily on anything in the world. Why wouldn't I spend it on this guy's card, right? So, and like, I think my Brennan Davis cards, for example, I might have paid a couple bucks for them when I bought them. So what are you expecting to get back from a card like that? And then, sorry to interrupt you on the pitcher because I'm totally tracking with you, and I want you to finish your thought on the pitching side of things. But why so low, and will there be room for profit on that for you?
The short answer is yes, I think. There's always room for stud baseball players to make profit if you get in beforehand. Like if you were to look at, people are always buying Nolan Ryan cards. You go to any card show out there, and there's PSA and Beckett stuff, graded Nolan Ryan cards.
Yeah.
And one of the best 90s baseball, if you look at like the early 90s or in late 80s, that Randy Johnson Expos card is really popular. So it's like, it's not that pitchers aren't traded, and that's not really what I'm saying, but in terms of X return, you're not getting the amount of upside on a pitcher that you are a hitter. And I think that's because I think it's a couple of things. One, our game is not necessarily geared towards pitchers right now. Like our game marketed is for the hitters. Like we have a home run derby. We don't have a strikeout derby. People want to see the long ball. And the more that this game changes into like a media first type thing, pitching is an art form. Like you really have to enjoy the art of baseball to really look at a pitcher and know, wow, that guy is killing it tonight.
Yeah, that's true.
And you don't have to know baseball at all to watch Pete Alonso get up there and absolutely mash a ball and be like, whoa, that dude is probably pretty good. But there are some differences to that. But with Owen White, for instance, I do think there will be a return on that $1.79 card. And I bought his Bowman Chrome Auto for $13 last week. And so it's like, that's okay. But if I'm looking at a $13 card and I could buy Austin Shenton at 11 and Owen White at 13, and I'm not a Rangers fan. Now I bought Owen White because I'm a Rangers fan, and because I'm like, oh man, we've never had good pitching. So one good pitcher, and I'm like, heck, I'm buying his cards, And so I'll probably be buying a lot of Rangers pitchers just personally, with Cole Winn and Jack Leiter and them coming up. But anyway, that.
Yeah.
Side thing.
No, it's good to know that there's always a market. That's the thing about sports cards that I've been excited about is that there's always a market for a card. You've got the fan, you've got the collector, and then you've got the investor. And so I think the best way of putting it to me would be it sounds like fans and collectors might be more into pitchers, especially on the baseball side,
Absolutely.
whereas investors are definitely going to be more interested. If they're looking to make money on it, then they're going to be more interested in the sluggers. But to your point, if you're kind of a mix of all three, and you can find a pitcher that you're excited about in your team's system, then that kind of checks all boxes, and you might, even if then maybe you don't care the money that you're spending on it, and it could just be a PC
Yeah,
piece.
and that's kind of how Owen White was for me. But there's
Mhm.
one pitcher that I invested in this year out of all of the cards that I bought this year in my investment like tracking portfolio. Only one of them was a pitcher, and that was Joe Ryan before he got up with the Minnesota Twins. I believed in him coming out of Tampa Bay, and I was like, okay, I'm going to get some of his stuff. So when he comes into the major leagues, people have rarely ever heard of him. So when he does get up and people start being like, wow, this guy's blowing away hitters, I can make a return on that. So it does happen, but it's very rare considering I probably invested in hundreds of sluggers this year and one pitcher, So
Yeah.
um,
So I didn't prep you for this question, but you made me think of it. So just do the best
these are my
job you
favorite
can.
kinds.
You made me think of something that I've been working on building for myself, which is just basically an investment strategy, right? Like how if you play daily fantasy sports and you're actually good at daily fantasy sports, then you know what I'm talking about. It's like,
Yeah.
what's your bankroll strategy? Um, what what type of variance are you going to be okay with? And essentially, like how often are you going to play? That sort of thing. So when you talk about who you invested in, right? You made me think of asking you, like, can you break down just, you don't have to get into the details unless you want to, but at a high level, do you have an investment strategy? Meaning, do you sit down at any point in the year and say, okay, heading into this time period, I'm going to spend X amount of dollars, and here's what I'm going to look. I'm going to look for these things. And do you try to stay disciplined as a sports card investor? I would imagine that this would apply to you more so being a baseball analytics guy. I would think that this would be like a natural frame of mind for you, but I mean, maybe not. How do you approach that?
So the longer that I'm in the hobby, the more I want that, the more I desire can I take the emotions out of it and can I make a play on something that I know is not going to be an emotional element, but is like a statistical, analytical, this guy's going to match even if I don't like him, like, is this guy going to make us money? What are our buys? And I think I have a very loose section right now, but going into 2022, that's going to be a big change for me, is going into like, hey, this almost like a um have you ever heard of like do you know who Dave Ramsey is? You're from
Yeah.
Nashville, right? So
Yep.
like Dave is like very much like, if the envelope system, like if you're out of money in the envelope, you don't buy anything else, and so
Hmm.
I at one way I do want to be that sort of disciplined, but in another way, man, like if there's ever a Bowman Chrome auto that fits in and it's under $25, I'm probably gonna snag it. Like so.
Yeah.
Um, it's a loose framework for me, and I think there are sections of time where I do buy more than others. I do not. I try not to buy in March and April because typically people go frenzy in March and April
Yeah. Super
because
hype, right? It's just that's when everyone is
yeah,
hype
you
about baseball.
really, really, really want to have your positions already set in March and April, unless it's a guy that you know is on a backfield somewhere and is going to make like you don't want to invest in Riley Green in March. Like
Right.
that's probably when you want to sell Riley Green. You want to
Yeah.
sell Julio Rodriguez in March, so I'm picking him up all year this year. So it's just like. There is a sort of system to it, but if I'm honest, I have not been in it long enough to have a year over year over year
Yeah.
system. And that's really what I desire to have. Is more of a strategy.
Yeah.
But I have strategies to buy, but not, and when to buy, but not how much yet. And the more I go into it, the more that'll be finalized.
Yeah, I'm the same exact way. I desire to have it all written out for myself and to share with others. And I wanted to include like an expected return on investment and then a profile. I think more than anything, like what I've established is a certain profile that makes sense in my head for a player and a card and a grade or a brand of a grading company or an auto, and like some qualifications of the card and then a profile of the player and then a price point, right? Like I think that's kind of what you and I are saying. And then, but that really is like we're still like in the feel. We're still like buying based on feel. We just have like these qualifications to let us know whether or not we're going to feel good or bad about it. And then if we feel good enough about it, then we buy it. And so I kind of want to take that to the next level and be like, okay.
Yeah, and
but you're right. You need to be in it. I think you made a good point. Like you need to be in it long enough, and then you need to basically look at your historical data and then build your model based on sort of how well you did based on your good feel, and then you need to check yourself, right? I mean, I think that needs to be part of it.
And that's where that JB Plus is coming in for us. Like that's what we wanted to finalize with that. We wanted to take historical data and say, okay, this, the prospects that we have seen 10 years ago that no one heard of, and all of a sudden they exploded in the major leagues. How can you look through and kind of dig around in the single A and double A, and find those guys before they come in and pop off, how can you get ahead of a Yerman Mercedes, or is that even possible? And because Yerman Mercedes grew 3,000% in the first 3 days of the major league season last year. And so it's just like, of course, you're not going to have a rookie that nobody's heard of come in and go 12 for 12 straight out of the gate. That's not going to happen all the time. But at the same time, if you knew that Yerman Mercedes had a bat that he was capable of, you could have made some serious money there. So that's where that JB Plus is coming in. So finding those guys that aren't necessarily, on that. And that's what we're doing every week on the Cardboard Connection show on YouTube. And so I'd love to have you on that as well, just to get you more involved there. And I also want to say, Paul, like if you ever have any of those questions, feel free to reach out to me. You kind of are in the inner fold with me, so
I appreciate that, man. It's super fun. I'm definitely gonna be WhatsApping you more often, emailing you more often, because I'm at a point in my life where I'm just sort of always yearning for this kind of talk. And so we had it on the show today. We'll have it on the show again. I'll be happy to join anything that you've got going on. I think I do enjoy baseball. I'm gonna be digging in to more baseball. But I will say that I've been watching as many NBA games as I possibly can. I think my main passion.
Please tell me you saw last night.
Oh, which one?
The Stewart getting bloody with LeBron.
Yes, of course the Pistons. That's my team. And
I know. That's why I was like, please tell me you saw that.
Yeah, for sure. So that was incredible.
Was that like 7 a.m. for you or something like that?
Yeah, it's yeah, exactly. It was. I was like I wake up at 3 or 4 every once in a while, just randomly, and then I'll forget and I'll check NFL.com or NBA.com, and I'm looking for the recap, but the game's still going on, so that still throws me off. But yeah, at least I got a championship ring against those Lakers from 2003, 2004. So
yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Do you have it with you in Spain?
No, it's actually back in Tennessee. It's
I wanted to see that.
Yeah, I'll have to flash it one of these days.
Yeah, just don't even say anything. Just just scratch your head, and all of a sudden everyone's like, "Oh my god!"
Hey, how's it going, guys? But
That'd
yeah,
be
I'd love to add. I think my scouting on the NBA and on the NFL side of things, just from my fantasy football background, is definitely stronger than baseball. Baseball, you've inspired me to do some more research, to go to justbaseball.com, and yeah, to keep staying in touch. So, hey, I got one more question for you before I let you go, and thanks again for staying this long on the show.
Sure.
Where do you buy your baseball cards? Like, I have to imagine that you've had um, good experiences in a lot of different places, but that there are some more economical places for you to find the cards that you want at the price point that you want, where you can make money in the future. For baseball cards, like, what do you recommend?
I have two ways that I buy things. And a lot of people are like, "Oh yeah, shows are what you do." And man, I always feel like I get overplayed at shows all the time because they
Okay.
only typically have not what I'm looking for, if that makes sense. Because I dive deeper than usually what they have. Usually they have the guys that what we talked about at the very beginning. They have those guys ready and available at shows.
Yep.
So I buy it on eBay. I don't think it's a perfect solution, but I think it's a really good solution. At Just Baseball, we are talking with eBay to be, in some partnerships with them and seeing if we can work that out in the future. But what they've done is they're really growing their collectibles department. I don't know if you know their collectors beta that's going on right
Yeah,
now.
I've heard about it.
That's Yeah, it's going to be really cool. Like the more eBay really looks at like this is really popping off on our app. How can we keep it here? I think that's growing. So I am a fan of eBay, even though a lot of people call it Feebay. But my second primary way of buying cards is in Facebook groups.
Okay.
And I join Facebook groups that are specific to what I am trying to look for. For instance, I have some of them that I'm in for sports cards in general. Some of them are regional, like the Lexington area. That's where I'm from. And so there are others that I've found that it's literally like I literally am a part of a group called Bowman Chrome. People are literally only looking for this, and
Yeah.
it's a lot easier. And so a lot of those Facebook pages I've been really really happy with. And a lot of people don't put a lot of trust in that, and I've done hundreds of transactions at this point. And I've never ever had an issue, not one
Yeah.
time. So
That's valuable because I think a lot of people, well, I hope a lot of people are going to hear this interview and they're going to get inspired to buy some Bowman Chrome, Bowman First Chrome, and they're going to
yeah,
see how much it is to get into, to even try to acquire either a box or to get into a break or something. And so to be able to then try to get the player they want is going to become more expensive. But if they can go to a place like you're talking, once they find maybe their own Austin Shenton, for example, and they're trying to search for that player, they're that's good advice to knowing that you can find it on eBay, knowing that you can get specific with your searches on Facebook groups and ask people and post in these groups for what you're looking for. My experience is very good in Facebook groups as well. So good to know that that's the case for you. And it may not be the most efficient thing, but if you're
yeah,
doing it
I
for
will say
fun,
that. Like, I will say it's pretty frustrating sometimes, but
yeah,
not in a just like in a way of like nobody has what I have or what I want.
nobody has what I
Um,
want, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get a response or when I'm going to get a response. Whereas,
sure,
like, being able to go onto somewhere like StarStock, you can just type in the player's name and you can see if they have. But
but
again,
you're
like
also
that,
going to pay more that way
you're
too.
going to pay a
So
lot more. Yeah, you are going to pay a lot more. I mean, StarStock is not the best place for finding the best deal, and
but it's
if
right
you
there.
if it's right there, it's all that balance of like how much time do you have, how much do you enjoy
Right.
it, and how
Now I
much do you
have
really
bought
want to
some cards
profit
off
from
of ComC.
it. Okay.
That I'm intrigued there. I wouldn't say that I'm ready to like promote that, so I'm already, I
Yeah,
guess, promoting it just by bringing it up. But um, that's on my watch list, I guess, for
that's a
buys.
good
It
that's a
is
good one that I
ComC.
always forget about too. I might need to go back to ComC and see what they. I haven't bought anything off of ComC, but
The only reason I bring it up is because sometimes I find eBay listings that are the cheapest option of the ComC listing is the cheapest option, and typically it's like the shipping is the most delayed. So if you're trying to make a quick flip, don't do that. But if you're trying to make a long play and it's a little, like, a couple bucks cheaper, why don't you go ahead and do that?
Yeah,
All
for
right,
sure.
Paul, I
Good
saved
stuff, man.
I saved one name for you from the very end.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, look, this is a very speculative play.
I love it.
Big risk, big reward here. Okay. And most of the guys are going to be like, don't buy this card. But I'm just saying, I bought one.
Okay.
I bought one of this guy, Lolo Sanchez.
Hey, I'm Googling the name.
I don't know if you can see it right here.
We can see it. Looking
Bowman
good.
Chrome
Okay, so
auto Lolo Sanchez in the Pirates.
It's a good-looking
system.
card, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I like that
so,
card. I'm pulling him up right now.
Look at his WRC plus from his minor league system this year. WRC plus is obviously a sabermetrics, but he had a good year in the system, and the system is already stacked. So I'm like, okay, what are they going to do with him if he gets traded and all of a sudden he pops off at another place? Like, hey yo. Anyway, it's a long play and it's a very speculative play, but I got this card for $6. So there you go.
I love it. Thank you for saving that for last. I'm going to be looking into all these guys that you've thrown out here today. This has been super valuable for me, and I know it will be for the audience. So thanks again, Kendall. Good talking to you, man.
Absolutely, Paul.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Go Pistons, right?
That's right. Go Pistons. Let's go Cade Cunningham, baby.
Let's go. All right, man. I'll see you later.
All right, everybody. That was Kendall McKee with Wild Cards Box Breaks on Facebook and justbaseball.com. Kendall, amazing job today. Thanks for watching and listening to the Sports Card Strategy Show. I'm Paul Hickey with nooffseason.com. We are brought to you by MarketMoversApp.com by Sports Card Investor. Be sure to use the promo code NOOFFSEASON, all lowercase, to save 20% at the best place to track the data of your entire collection, learn who to buy low and when to sell them high. Thanks for watching and listening to the Sports Card Strategy Show. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and check out our new Facebook group. Do all of this by going to sportscardstrategy.com. Thanks, everybody, and have a great day.